And that's the furthest I've been about not discussing other people's work. And that's the furthest of me branching out. Because in the other shows I do, even Henshin Hangout, we're deconstructing what we just saw and why it worked and why it didn't work. The Morning Word show is us kind of talking about what inspires us and how we write and our approach to writing. And that's the furthest I've been from what I usually do, which is deconstruct everyone else's projects, more or less. So outside of that, like, I don't know where else I feel like I would feel that passionate to discuss and use my time to put into.
So that's a great answer. Next thing I want to talk about is audience engagement. But before we do that, audience, I want to ask you guys if you have any questions for any of us.
Skype it?
What?
You want to Skype it?
We can Skype in answers. Yeah. If you have any questions for us, we're more than willing to answer. What I just did is called audience engagement. So I want to talk to you guys.
It was amazing.
Segue.
So what I'd like to do is talk to me about how you guys think audience engagement kind of benefits you, but at the same time, making it very unique to the experience for your specific viewer.
I'll go.
Yeah. Okay.
So for me, I actually started really afraid of audience engagement because I don't find myself to be a very strong writer. And I've surrounded myself with very talented writers. So having to actually answer people, it was a big fear of mine where I maybe wouldn't. I just like their comment and move on. And then I found when I was going to follow other, celebrities or podcasts or anything like that, I always look through their comments just naturally to see, okay, do they engage? Nope, they don't engage. No point in following.
Sure.
And that clicked to me where I was like, well, if I'm not going to follow these people who don't engage, how am I not going to turn around and do the same thing? And so I think you have to remember that when you're thinking about whether you're going to engage or how you're going to engage, look at what you want or what you expect from somebody, and that's what you need to be giving back because that's what your fans are looking for and expecting from you.
For me, any sort of engagement is you know how everybody says any press is good press or whatever. I would say any sort of engagement is good engagement.
Yeah.
If somebody
100%.
I hate
agree.
saying this, but okay, so we actually did a podcast on The Last Jedi, where all three of us turned out to absolutely love the film.
Yeah, we loved it too.
We loved it
Yeah.
too.
Yay!
And it's the most polarizing subject for our audience.
And
Yeah.
I got legitimate death threats through my email, and I was like, oh my god, I live in their head rent free now.
Yeah, that's valuable real estate.
It was so. I was like, oh
That's
my god,
great.
it was incredible.
Our panel got made fun of by a YouTuber.
Yes. Okay. So our latest panel.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
Yes.
Our latest panel, which was called "Nostalgia, It Doesn't Belong to You." Alex and I developed this idea, thinking about seeing nostalgia and seeing people do gatekeeping and barriers and all this stuff. We wanted to talk about that, and we actually got called out on an alt-right YouTubers, like one of the most popular,
Guys.
and almost the most popular alt-right YouTuber, and I was like, oh my gosh, we made it. I have a hate group that hates us. This is the best. And all jokes aside, it's great to our words were on his lips.
And
that-
it shows us we're on the right side of history.
And we're on the right side of
Yeah.
history, and Ro, you're right.
Yeah.
It's valuable real estate.
It is valuable real estate. Look, and going back to the business side of things, understanding algorithms is very important.
You're talking very inside baseball now at this point.
Yeah, kind of. But you know what? If you turn this into a business, if you want to get into geek media, you want to fucking get out of your stupid cubicle job pushing buttons for a guy that's never going to pay you more than $16 an hour.
I don't
You're
even
like,
let Jezzer eat here.
okay, I'm sorry, Jezzer. But this is why Jezzer does it, because he's like, I need a fucking outlet for this. I'd like to do something else. Let's do something big. I'm going to create a world for myself. Oh, we got to
Put him on hold though for a second. Put him on hold for a second.
Anyways, so to take that next step, if you figured out you can talk for 45 minutes on the phone and you've created some social media and you've created a blog, the next thing you have to do to make this a monetizable business, skipping forward, I realize I'm skipping forward, you have to understand algorithms and you have to understand how different types of engagements work on the different types of social media, and you have to be very involved with it.
So, like we said, actually we didn't say this, but we're saying this now. We're taking callers. That hashtag show, you can Skype us. We already have somebody on the line. Blackwing, Jonathan Jennings
Hey,
what is your
Blackwing.
question to everybody on the panel or anyone in specific?
Hey guys. Of course you guys know I have my own YouTube channel. So my question is, how is it trying to balance different kinds of content? Because on my channel, of course, I do live reads, I do top 10 videos. I do casual streams where I just, sit down and just communicate with my YouTube audience. And I also recently just started doing this segment on my channel called Toku Tuesdays, where I just talk about, like Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. And that's kind of been a bit of a struggle. When it comes to like bringing new segments in, how do you find the right topics to talk about? Or, if a current show is airing, how do you find like the right things to talk about?
Can I answer this?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right,
do
so
it.
I'll be 100% honest with you, Blackwing. Had we been just a specific Power Ranger show, we'd have like 200,000 subscribers at this point. However, we diversified everything into going deeper into geek culture. We do Star Wars, superheroes, and everything like that. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this, by the way. I think that you just got to figure out what works and what your audience is attaching to, and then move in that direction if that's the direction you want to move in. I mean, you guys can answer this too, because it's...
I was gonna say, if it's not working, don't be afraid to change it up.
Yes.
I go by the 80-20 rule. If you have 100% of your work, get rid of the bottom 20, or keep the top 20, look at your analytics. Your analytics will tell you everything. I love to just make all different types of content. I'm a fanboy. I can talk about everything and go on and on and on, and I love to just do shit like that. But at the end of the day, as the business side of me looks at the analytics. So YouTube, being a part of the Google family, has great analytics, can tell you so much about your audience and where you're losing them and where you're keeping them.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to take the idealistic side on this one. Blackwing, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yep.
If this takes up a lot of your valuable time, and when you create these segments, it's this feeling of accomplishment, but also it's okay to kill your babies. At this point.
But that is a hard thing for most people.
Listen,
to do.
something that we had to do that for specifically is, I'm not even sure if you watch this, but like, we had a wrestling show here for a while.
Yeah.
And
I know about it.
yeah, we weren't performing. The numbers weren't getting what we wanted them to be. And
I was driving Joe crazy with this
I'm a
kind of
huge
stuff.
wrestling fan, but it's like, listen, it wasn't working. We didn't get the audience. We had to let it go. Not saying we won't resurrect it in the future, but as of right now, it just doesn't work. We need to put us collectively, we needed to put our manpower. I hate saying the word manpower, but we needed to put our energy somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's why we're getting. That's why you got a Megazord and Power Morphicon.
Can I ask him a question? Blackwing, did you start making all these different shows because you had so much to talk about, or because you wanted a lot of content?
Basically, I could say I have a lot to talk about because there's so much fandoms that I love that I don't really share about. Because recently, I was kind of a bit of afraid to talk about Power Rangers on my channel because I felt like no one would really watch it. So I'm slowly bringing that in with Toku Tuesdays and everything. And there's a small amount of people that like it, so I'm just diving in more to see what else can I bring to that particular segment.
Yeah, I mean, like Joe had said, it's really on you if you want to invest a lot of your time into content that, if you love it, then continue doing it. But if it's not working out for you, it's on you whether or not you want to continue.
I mean, you know how many times we get asked, how come we don't do a retro Henshin show?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we want to. It's just we want to make sure that the first Henshin show that you guys are watching is getting the numbers we want it to get.
Especially like from a jump from Ranger Wrap Up to Henshin, the numbers just
It's a huge difference.
It's a big difference. Yeah.
So I mean, it's really on you if you want to continue, like, investing a lot of your time and effort into spreading yourself thin with all this different content. Whether or not it's beneficial to you, or if you're hitting those numbers.
I'll say too, if you're sharing something new, you might want to reach out to new audiences. I'm sure there's Facebook groups or meetups or things like that that maybe your YouTube channel hasn't reached yet because you just started this. So going to the Power Morphicon events and things like that and introducing yourself and saying, hey, I've also started this show. My content connects to you. you're going to start picking up those listeners and those viewers. And that's really the goal, is to pick up new people who will continue watching your other works as well.
And definitely, again, like, always go by your own, like, gut and what you are still excited about and what you still have the energy to do. I run a site called agentsofguard.com, but I'm not going to lie. There was a good 3-year period for me and the other writers on that site. We're writing almost every day for free. We never got any ads. We never got any attention for the site, but we were really passionate about what we did. But eventually, slowly, we started writing less and less because life, our own personal passion about it, and yeah, we weren't really getting any kind of money from it. So after a while, yeah, eventually you gotta just sort of going like, okay, well, we're doing something wrong, and we aren't as passionate about it as much as we used to, because we aren't getting the audience and the readership that we thought we were, even though we tried really, really, really hard. And eventually, yeah, we just sort of cooled it down, and the site's still up, and we have intention of coming back to it, but like, we all kind of listen to ourselves and we're like, we can't try to force things if we're not excited about doing it. So you really got to listen to yourself when you're making stuff like this.
I would bring back that same question that I posed earlier. Is this a business? Do you want to think about this as a business, or do you want to think about this as an art project? Because it's two different things. And if you want to make this a business and you want to scale it, drop everything that's not working, scale your audience, and then expand once you have a viable audience to work with.
But if you're doing it for the passion,
then just fucking do it.
Then just do it. Yeah. That's all it's really going to. I mean, and sometimes people fall into their passion through this. But thanks for calling in, Blackwing. Again, we're taking your questions and comments.
Blackwing, you're the best, man. He's always in our chats and
always
that guy.
Awesome.
No, I'm just kidding. He's a good kid.
No. You like a lot of my stuff. Thanks.
Yeah.
No, he's a really good kid.
He's an engaging member in our community.
I got a question though. Is that when is a very particular time that you can recall when you thought to yourself, I made it, or I got recognized, or this is a weird experience. Why is this happening? When is that moment happened?
I'll tell you. Okay, here's the thing.
Here's the thing. I like when sentences start with "here's the thing."
Here's the thing. Of all the years I've been doing my podcast, I never really get any acknowledgement from somebody I don't know. The only time I've ever gotten any kind of acknowledgement of what I've done was at Morphicon last weekend.
No.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Get out.
No, serious. Like, I do all these podcasts, and like, kind of like what Rose said, it's like, the people who like your show won't actually say anything about it. That's the hilarious part about the internet. If they hate something, these really loud people will come out of nowhere and start screaming at you.
Stupid is loud, dude.
Exactly.
Stupid is loud.
Absolutely true. And yet, I will find out, going back to my website, when I was writing blogs, like, I retired a series of articles I used to do, and then out of nowhere, like all these people were like, oh, how come you don't write those anymore? Where were you when I was? So I don't get recognized for podcasts at all. But when I was at Morphicon, I kept meeting our fellow hashtaggers, our listeners, our watchers, and like they would go up to me and tell me like, they were excited to meet me, and they referred to me by, like their username, and I was like, oh, hi, and I would realize who I was talking to.
That's awesome.
And that really like kind of blew me away. And that was the first time I felt like, oh, actually, I'm acknowledged for doing, which is to me just, I'm having fun. I've come down here. I talk about Japanese superheroes for an hour, or talk about Power Rangers for an hour, and this is easy to me. But the fact that you find that exciting and you want to talk to me is really cool. Yeah,
it's very cool.
What about you guys?
Did you want to take this one, or you want?
No, go for it.
I've had a few, which is really weird. So there's we're heavily involved in a lot of geek events in Orange County, and we're even trying to develop some ourselves. And one of the weirdest things, and please don't ever do this to me.
That is just the cue for me to write a note right now.
I always have people that are really terrified to speak to me. So they'll do that thing where they'll like wave and then they'll just like walk away or something like that. That's when I know I'm like, oh, you know who I am, and you did you want to talk to me? I'm not a mean person, and I know that I come off as like super professional, especially when we're at our events and stuff, but I do want to talk to people, and they always talk to Alex and Cole, like terrified to speak with me. But yeah,
that's hilarious.
We had an event during our nostalgia podcast, or our nostalgia live recording at San Diego Comic-Con this year, where I actually went and talked to the people, and we almost filled the Neil Morgan Auditorium, which is like what 120-ish seats.
Yeah.
We got a little over 60.
Yeah,
it's
and
pretty
so I wanted to talk to a bunch of people after outside and stuff, and they're like, "Hey, I really love your work," and I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." And I'm like, I don't think I've met you. Have you been to one of the Orange County events? And they're like, "No, I'm from Iowa." And I'm like, "What are you doing listening to me?" I'm like, "You have so many better things to do. There are so many other people that you could have just randomly listened to." But that was one of the biggest compliments I've got.
Very cool.
I did get one of these at PMC. Me, Jezzer, and Daryl were walking to the entrance, and I saw somebody. They were standing in line off in the distance. They went like this to me, and they go.
Yeah.
So I went over, took the picture, said hi, and I walked away. And they were like, "Where did you go?" And I was like, "He gave me this. You saw this."
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay," but it was super polite. I would say the first time I ever got recognized, it was the most awkward experience of my life. I was with Daniel Jerome. We were at the Long Beach Comic Con. They were doing an after party there, and I was in the bathroom, going to the bathroom, and somebody's like, "Oh, hey, you're Joe from that hashtag show." And I was like, "Oh man!" I was like, "Yeah, I am." He's like, "Can we take a picture?" Like, when I'm not peeing, yes, absolutely. And then it was so weird, but it was super cool, and that was the first time I really was like, Daniel freaked out too. He's like, "Dude, you got recognized." But it was cool. But this MorphCon, like you said, was overwhelming but humbling.
Yeah.
Because same thing. I had no idea that so many people. They were like, "Oh, hey, let's take a picture." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." But I think maybe because I do this so much now that I don't actually. All of you people that are actually watching us right now, I think you're fake. I don't actually think you're real.
All of you are bots.
until I actually meet you, and then it's like, oh wow, they are real people. But it's just a different thing. How about you? I mean, sure you've got sliders.
Yeah, well, that was a big moment in my life. That was actually a really fun day because I got brought onto that show by Duff McKagan, the bass player of Guns N' Roses, and so he brought me on, and we were hanging out, and we were filming on the Universal lot, and this is one of my first times like where I was like, ooh, this is a cool feeling, and the security guards walked us to the front of every line. They're like, and everyone was like taking our pictures and stuff because we were in that episode of Sliders. We were a band that we were playing members of this band.
They were also vampires. Did you mention they were?
We were vampires. But anyway,
Yes.
so being escorted and having everybody take our pictures, and so between shoots, every time production was down and they were set, we'd jump in the golf cart and security would run us to the front of some line, and they're like, the Guns N' Roses guys are coming in. I was like, okay, well that's not the credit I was looking for, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
So there was that, and then so like the music stuff, like back in the day, is a different thing. But as far as like in the geek world, doing my UFO, which eventually became Mulder's World, and then the Bigfoot Report, I had like 3 different websites that were all doing really well. That moment where I signed my contract with Spike TV, and I was sitting on the plane 2 rows behind Dean Cain and the rest of the cast, going, we're going to spend 2 months in the woods hunting Bigfoot with Dean Cain. I'm on a plane and I'm getting a fucking big paycheck for this. Wow, this is pretty fucking cool. And then going to events afterwards and just having people mob you and like, and by the way, in that field, it's all like 40-year-old men who mob you. So, yeah, it was pretty strange and surreal.
We do have another phone call. Layla, we're being right with you in a second. But Jezzer, you can't be any. This territory is not new for you. You getting kind of like fan interaction because you were a cosplayer, like we said.
Definitely, but now more so, I'm not in a costume. So I'd probably, over the years of cosplaying, like the past 3 or 4 years, got stopped numerous times. But for being a character, not as being myself. But definitely, like you guys, Paramorphicon was probably the most like ever. There was at one point in time, I was going up the escalator, and there was a group of people that were just like, "Hey, it's Cookie Face," and I was like, and, like, I never really intended for that name to like stick.
I love that it sticks.
I didn't even know, like, if you look at the footage, it said once, just once, and I didn't know that it was just gonna, follow me for a while. I don't know how long
For
it's
life.
T-shirts.
That's how that shit happens. Like 20% Cooler was only said one time on. Wait, am I the only one who's a brony?
Oh yeah,
I was like, I don't know what that just
Alex is a Pegasus here.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that was said once briefly in passing and became a thing forever.
Yeah. So
Then it's
it's
just
definitely like, and then throughout the whole convention, is it Cookie Face? I really like your guys' show. I was like,
I'm not
that's
calling him anything else.
That's not my name. Okay, cool. Or one cool thing is when you meet people that you know don't like you, and then they pretend to be nice to you. And it's like, you're shaking my hand, but I know you hate me. So this is actually very gratifying.
So Layla's on the line, but before I get into Layla's call, I do have a fun story about
Cookie Face?
/ Jezzer. We were going to a Warner Brothers event together, the Teen Titans movie,
Oh, yeah.
and our Warner Brothers rep, I wrote his name down. My guess is gonna be Jezzer Reyes, and she said, "Hey, I don't mean this to sound offensive, but is his name really Jezzer?" And I wrote, "Unfortunately, yes." But it gets better. His middle name is Zeus. That was the best. So at least Cookie Face might be a little bit better than that, right?
Adorable.
So we're gonna put Cookie